Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. Back in your life, to quote Ariel Hawani, back on audio only, back on Zoom. The in-studio experiment is temporarily halted due to lack of audio quality. And unfortunately, last week was 100% on me because I watched it back and I start the podcast sounding great with the mic right in front of my face and then immediately put it about 3 feet away where you can barely hear me. So my apologies there for the poor quality. And honestly, after the last few poor quality videos, I'm amazed if you're even watching. So thanks for being here. I'm, of course, your host, Matt, joined as always by producer Josh.
Well, just host today, I suppose. You're doing all the producing today.
I know. 2 jobs in one. Josh is
just host.
A special guest, co-host.
Fuck you, I'm host. I'm host. You're co-host, bitch.
All right, that's fine. I'm also producer. I've got 2 titles. I don't mind being co on the other one. Share the responsibilities. And guys, like the video if you're enjoying the content. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Comment if you have anything to say. I certainly imagine after the poor quality of our last couple of videos in terms of audio and all that jazz, hasn't been up to a good scratch. So we'll be putting on a good show for you today to discuss everything that happened at UFC.
We've also been doing it without our regular equipment, so we're doing everything under very trying conditions recently. And today, to be honest, like the reason we're not doing a studio app is just because it's a short week with it being Christmas and everything, and you and I both had a lot of things we had to do today. So
pretty much,
just as a matter of convenience, audio only, we are in separate locations, logging in via the beauty that is the internet. What a world we live in.
And we've got the last UFC card of the year to discuss. It was certainly a good lineup. Wouldn't quite say it delivered the excitement that maybe we were hoping, although there were certainly some good fights. There were some really good performances. There were some surprises. Certainly, I imagine for you, Josh, considering how confident you were on a couple of your picks, which did not quite go that way. It will not, however, be our last show of the year. I think we're going to do an end of year kind of discussion and awards thing, which is probably going to happen at some point next week. Although the exact date we've got to figure out because I'm away for Christmas and then you're going to be back at work. So we'll have to work that one out, but we will at some point next week get something together.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I actually thought it was a very exciting card, to be honest.
I thought there were good moments. I didn't think the main event was the most exciting fight, although I thought it was a very interesting, a very tense technical fight. There's some, listen, we'll get into all of that. Starting with our main event. Sean Strickland, Cannonier. Cannonier gets it done. Just about. I don't want to say controversially, but we do kind of need to say controversially because this is one of those fights where a lot of people think Strickland won, a lot of people think Cannonier won. And obviously we had the situation at UFC 282 with some, how do we put this, erratic judging decisions or some disagreed with judging decisions. I don't actually have an issue.
Last week doesn't matter. Judging's always been very spotty. You know, judging's never been good. It's never been consistent. It's never been any of those things. But like honestly, I don't know how controversial it is. It just comes down to like purely like from an MMA level scoring fights. How do you measure damage? You know, it's just such an impossible thing to kind of quantify because ultimately it becomes a subjective thing. There's no objective way to look at how damage is scored.
Yeah, particularly in a fight like that where there weren't any shots that really landed where you're like, whoa, he just got hit with something massive there. It was an extremely technical fight. I've got to be honest, I don't think a single scorecard that you could have submitted for that fight would have been incorrect. Because obviously, as you say, it's not just about quantifying damage. Like in 3 of the rounds, they were separated by like 2 strikes. And they
Yeah.
targeted different parts of the body. So you're going, okay, well, one guy landed significantly more headshots, but he was very clearly not loading up on any of those shots. They were very good, clean shots, but how much damage did they really cause? Then you've got another guy who's landing a little bit heavier, but he's attacking the legs, he's attacking the body. How do you quantify a clean 1-2 to the head, to a leg kick and a roundhouse to the body? These are very difficult things to quantify. And to be honest, I kind of come away from this thinking this is an example of when you would need, and maybe when there should be, open scoring. And my logic there is that the judges are still going to look at the fight the same way, but both of those guys had every reason to think that they were just edging the rounds. And it meant that once you got into round 3, round 4, round 5, there wasn't really a huge, a little bit of pace might have been picked up here and there. One guy maybe was going forward in one round, and then the other guy would try and put the pressure on in the other round, in the next round. But it's not like, they were both kind of fighting, thinking that they were doing enough to win, to win overall. At least if Strickland knows.
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to jump in there because I kind of feel quite differently. I felt Strickland was winning this fight, and I felt like Strickland felt like he was winning this fight. And to be honest, around about the third round, inevitably as you get more tired, kind of, technique slips a little bit, but more than anything, Strickland just started to kind of open up. And he was being very successful. Cannonier kept kind of switching between this very kind of like truncated, like hands out guards to having the close guard in when he was actually moving in on Strickland. When he had his hands out, Strickland was kind of using them like boxing pads and using it as a way to kind of set up the entries to combinations quite nicely. And then later on, Cannonier kept mixing it up. He did continue to sort of pivot and adjust, which I do credit him for. But, every time he came in with the close guard, Strickland was finding ways to pick him apart. I feel like a lot of the heavier shots that Strickland got off in this fight, he actually got off through Cannonier's guard as he came in tight. And I wonder how much the judges kind of struggle to score how clean these shots are. I wonder how correct I got it, even watching it back the second time. Am I seeing things perfectly here? The only person who can really tell you is Jared Cannonier. And if you ask him to score that fight, I don't think he's going to give it to Sean. So it's just this impossible thing. How do you score the damage? Because it's not how many clean shots versus how many clean shots. Ultimately, it's how close did you come to winning this fight? How close did you come to finishing this fight? And there's no definitive way to say. I love this fight for how much it kind of opens up the discussion about how you should or could score fights. And you already know my feelings on open scoring. I think we should have open scoring. I think that is a better problem to have than the one we currently exist with.
Well,
but this fight, yeah, like you say, like it'd be perfect for it. It would have made it an even better fight.
Sean Strickland kind of needed to know that after round 3, 2 of the judges weren't looking in his favor, because he needs to know that he's down at that point. And I think he needs to know that whatever he's doing isn't enough in these judges' eyes. And it would allow him to make the adjustment. And yeah, I've thought a lot about this over the last couple of days, because even the argument that everybody makes, in regards to open scoring is, oh, well, if one guy's too clearly knows he's 2 rounds up, he's just going to coast the rest of the fight. I feel like this was a situation where you get to the 5th round and both guys are kind of coasting because they both kind of think that they've got it.
Yeah, also it's 5 rounds of very tense fighting.
Yeah.
Where Cannonier doesn't want to get outpointed and Strickland doesn't want to get finished. I thought this was a really fun fight. But the other thing is people worry that, like the whole like, oh, well, one guy's going to coast. Well, I'd say that generally speaking, when people feel like they've got 2 rounds in the bag, inevitably they do coast anyway.
Yeah.
So what this would mean is that we definitively only have one person coasting in the 3rd round rather than having 2 people coasting in the later rounds. And also, if you have one person coasting because they know they're down, that means that the other person isn't just trying to win that round anymore. They're trying to get a 10-8 or win that fight. And I think that Yeah, I don't think you should judge how good a fight can be by one fighter perhaps taking their foot off the pedal a little bit if it means the other one's putting their foot through the floor. I think open scoring will, in the better fights, equate to much more exciting action. And
Well,
just generally speaking, I think it's the fairest way to go about it. But
also, Josh,
overall, like bad fights are going to be bad. It's just is what it is.
also, Josh, it's like what doesn't get discussed is all the situations. Like, how many times has a guy thought he's 2 rounds up and coasted and ended up losing the fight because one of those first 2 rounds went against him? So
Oh,
you're actually
every close fight ever.
so this idea of, oh well, more guys are going to coast. It's like, no, what's actually going to happen is that you're going to remove all those people that think that they're winning a fight from coasting that last round. Are you
Uh,
still there?
yeah, sorry, I'm still here. It's got a bit of lag. That's all. Yeah, look, I just think open scoring is the fairest way to do it. The only concern I have is that potentially, like, we will see more TBIs, more concussions, more things. But from a fighter safety standpoint, it does raise some questions. But overall, I just think it's a very positive thing. I think it's much more fairer than the way it currently exists. If we had very consistent judging, if they did have a much more clearly defined kind of overseeing kind of authority, reviewing and training on judging things like this, then yeah, you probably wouldn't need it. But because they seem to refuse to improve on the judging end of things, the very least you can do is let the fighters know how bad it's going to be on the fucking night and still have an opportunity to do something about it.
Yeah, I agree. And to kind of counter your points about, oh, more brain damage if a guy knows he's 2 down, we see so many fights where guys know that they're 2 down. And a lot of the time, they're going to be coming out aggressively anyway. And to be honest, if they're clearly down 2 rounds, it's probably for a reason a lot of the time. So we're not
Yeah, but
talking about a huge.
those fights aren't going to be changed by open scoring. It's the close fights that are going to be changed by the
No,
open
that's a
scoring.
valid point.
And and on those fights, when a guy is 2 rounds down, but he's in the fight, or a woman's 2 rounds down, they're in the fight, they go for it. And you basically you're just going to have more fights where people realize they really have to go for it and they really have to finish. So, from a fighter safety standpoint, it's a bit of a diminishment. But I think when you think overall about how much damage you take throughout your career and how hard you work to chase these things, not being fucked over by poor judging, if you can do something about it, it, all that damage isn't worth it if we can't get that right. So,
Here's another thought as well.
for me, it just seems like the fairest thing to do.
Here's another thought as well. We already have a situation where some elements of the scoring is made aware to the fighters. So if you commit a foul and get a point taken away, it's announced to everybody that the point's taken away. It's not like you get fouled and then it's the referee, or sorry, the judge, that then decides if you get marked down a point for that foul. So there is information that people do get about what's happening in the scoring. So it's not like we're saying that in the sport, it's just a blanket ban on any information. And that's just the way it is. The only argument is we're just giving them more information than they currently get.
Yeah. And there is also the sort of the potential that when the scores are read out, crowd reaction, fight reaction, corner reaction might in some way then pressure judges with scoring subsequent rounds. But I feel there's already so many fucking factors that kind of impact these things anyway.
That always
Honestly,
used to be.
I just think it's the fairest way.
That always used to be my biggest criticism against it is, how does that affect the fighters in the moment? How does that affect the fans in the moment? But then you kind of realize that that is the same issue that every single sport on the planet has to deal with. Usually
Yeah.
more in regards to the referees, but that's the same situation in every single live event. The judges are swayed by the home crowd being behind a guy already, because every time he lands a punch, he gets a cheer and the other guy doesn't get that same response. So these factors are already there. And what they would do is, I think they would put the judges into the spotlight a little bit more. I think it would make them feel a bit more accountable for the decisions that they make, because they'd actually be on show. They'd have an initial live reaction. And obviously, there's going to, maybe you want to give them some training on ignoring like home crowd bias and stuff like that. But also, if a very large number of people are consistently disagreeing with your scorecards, maybe you should be aware of that. And maybe that should be something that a judge has to address, rather than, I think what happens a lot, where it is they give the scorecards, they feel a bit separated from it. They're not necessarily focused on and in the spotlight. And as a result, there's, what's the criticism going to be? It's going to be some shit maybe on Twitter, and they can say, oh, that's just the haters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normally, like, what are the consequences here?
Yeah.
Let's just go back. I don't mind judges having a harder life if it makes things fairer to fighters.
Very true. Very true. Talking about the fight itself, it's funny because for a guy that's considered such a wild man as Sean Strickland, and I don't know if any of our listeners haven't, but if have or haven't, but I would highly recommend listening to his media scrum before the fight during fight week. For such a wild guy, his fighting style is remarkably disciplined. Like, I think the broadcasting nailed it when they were saying, like, you can see how much this guy spars from how comfortable he is in the pocket and just slipping away. And, there's so much to like about that. But I think...
Yeah, it wasn't there in the last fight, though. This feels more like a recent adjustment. It's more than just, like, sparring all the time, Like, he had a much, much more educated game plan. He had a lot more consideration for his opponent's strengths than he did in that Pereira fight.
I haven't seen him feint.
Yeah, he feinted a lot. He basically whatever Cannonier gave him, and Cannonier didn't come at him with a super pragmatic kind of approach where it was just constant different looks. He would try something, it wouldn't really pan out too great, and then he'd change and he'd try something to, he'd switch stances here and there. He'd switch his guard up, he'd switch his combinations up and his kind of angle of approach a little bit where he could, but nothing was like super like with Cannonier. That he came into it a little later than his peers. And for him, it's really just been like work ethic, power, experience, and just constantly laying on the job. Whereas Strickland had more of like that head start. He's been doing this for a lot longer. I'd say he's probably got 10 years minimum extra experience in the stand-up game than Cannonier has. But everything that Cannonier did, and again, it was kind of limited, but he was really fucking pushing a game plan out there, and he did keep changing things up. Every time Strickland like adapted well, and I was really fucking impressed with everything he did. I honestly thought he fought a really great fight. I thought it was the perfect way to try and kind of nullify Cannonier. There's the right amount of risk reward, every time he kind of opened up, he didn't have to eat too much shit for it. Everything he ate, I felt like it was kind of, the sort of shots you have to take to kind of give. And I really thought, as close as that fight was, that Strickland won. It's not a robbery or anything. I'm not saying that. But I thought Strickland had a really smart game plan. And I thought Cannonier worked his fucking ass off. And I'm glad I wasn't one of those judges.
I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing I'd say, and I think this is, for however technical, however disciplined I think his fight style is, and certainly was on the night, I feel like, we talked about this in the picture. There's a kind of rudimentary nature to Sean Strickland. It's incredibly basic. And I think if he just mixed things up a little bit more, had gone to the body a bit more, maybe tried to go for a few more leg kicks, I think he wouldn't have lost the fight on decision. I think it's the variety of striking and the different targets and the mixing it up from Cannonier.
He probably would have got knocked out though, if he'd opened it up more than he did, or if he was trying to go for like, I know he did have the one leg kick credited there. I can't remember how much he actually tried to throw. I think it probably was just the one. But if you try to leg kick a guy like Cannonier, who isn't, the most instinctive of counter fighters, but will absolutely start you with that straight cross if if you don't set that kick up right, if he sees it coming. I just don't think that's a smart enough one. Like you're already the better fighter. You've got the better footwork. You're pretty confident. You've got the better cardio. You don't really need to try and take away your opponent's power or base by chewing away at their lead leg. What you really need to do is, not get hit with anything really nasty and really clean, which Strickland did. And I don't know how much the leg kicks really would have added up in the judges' eyes. I think we do tend to see that there is a bias, unless you are dropping opponents with body shots or leg kicks. There is a bias for kind of headshots, I feel, when judges are scoring damage.
Usually, yeah. But
I wouldn't have changed it, to be honest. If I was Strickland, I thought that was perfect. Why throw leg kicks at a guy that you're already effectively faster than when it comes to actually being there in the octagon, moving your feet, moving your hands?
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to win in like a 100-yard race, but I'm pretty fucking confident that Cannonier in a combat sports environment is going to look like the faster man all day long against Cannonier. I think I understand what you're saying. Could he mix it up more? Would that have been a better kind of approach? I think potentially looking for ways when they were up against the cage to take the fight to the mat, and maybe go submission hunting for a little bit. It could have been a good optic for the judges. I come away from this fight and I go, I can't really slate the judges because how the fuck do you score damage at this stage when a fight's this close? I can't really say anything about Cannonier because I thought he came in with a really smart game plan and fought it well. And I can't say anything about Strickland because I honestly thought he had a better game plan. I thought he fought a little better. I had him winning the fight. It's a close fucking fight. I really hope that both guys get a huge opportunity off the back of this one, but because it wasn't a barn burner, I absolutely doubt that will really happen. But if you just look at it like at a technical level, that's where these boys are. At middleweight, everything in the rankings is kind of it's a little open, I feel. It doesn't really matter if you won or lost this fight. I think it's the next two that are going to matter as you kind of you try to march on up, and whether or not Izzy regains his crown. You're going to be up against another kickboxing guy when you get there. So
that's true. Well, the problem
variety is not just the spice of life; it's what they need right now.
Well, the other issue is particularly with Costa not fighting. A lot of these guys in the top 5 have kind of already fought each other at the moment. So it's like you look at Cannonier and he was sort of saying in this post-fight, I want to fight somebody ranked above me in the top 5. And it's like, well, dude, most of that is recent rematches that you just lost. I mean, the only guy above you that I think, you haven't fought or lost to is obviously the new champ, Pereira. Nobody's giving you a title shot after that. And, Vittori. And I think Vittori's booked
needs a dance partner.
Who's that?
Costa's, I don't know if it's official or not, but Costa has been very adamant that he is not taking the Whittaker fight.
Yeah, that's confirmed now.
Ones we're not met.
Whittaker did a thing and said that the fight's off.
Yeah, so Whittaker needs a fight right now.
Yeah, but he's Cannonier lost to Whittaker like 3 fights ago.
I know. I'm not looking at it as what's the ideal kind of booking sort of thing. I'm just saying, the man thought he had the fight done. The date, I think they had a date for the Costa fight as well, right?
Yeah, I think what they've said to Rob is they're trying to work something out for him in March or April, but it won't be Feb.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Rob's either going to get Dricus du Plessis or Cannonier will. Or Rob will get Cannonier.
See, I thought Strickland might get du Plessis.
I like that, man. I really like that. And if he doesn't get booked against one of the other guys, absolutely make that fight because Strickland should have an opportunity to be 2 fights away from the belt as well. So let's just keep it fun, keep it fresh, keep it exciting. Middleweight is a beast of a division, in my opinion, right now.
I'll tell you what I can see happening, man.
We've got some churn. We've got some old names coming out. We've got some new names coming in. So
I'll tell you what I could see happening. I could see Izzy deciding that he wants an extra 6 months to get ready for a rematch with Alex. And if they did that, and Alex was keen to defend the belt, and Rob was happy to fight, why not give Rob the shot? March, April, cheeky Whitaker versus Pereira for the middleweight belt. Why not?
Yeah. Absolute worst case scenario. You get the Whitaker Adesanya trilogy.
Yeah.
I could live with that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know me. I'm a huge Bobby Knuckles fan.
UFC, I'm UFC matchmakers. I'm happy to send my resume in. It has no relevance to the position, but I will work hard.
Yeah, and I'm twice the cunt that Mick Maynard is. So let's get it done.
But not as bad as Joel Silver. So moving in the right direction.
I am 1.5 times the cunt that Joe Silver is.
Bold statement. Talking about bold statements, co-main event. You said Ismagulov would, I quote you, easily ragdoll Arman Tsarukyan. Yeah. I thought Ismagulov would win this fight. I was wrong. Tsarukyan, man.
I was very impressed with Tsarukyan, man. I cannot believe how strong he was there. I mean, honestly, like initially, it was just he kind of beat him to the punch. He took the onus. He put Ismagulov on the back foot. But then as soon as he got that takedown, and once Ismagulov got to mount, and Tsarukyan just instantly reversed the position. Well, no, it's within 10 seconds, just reverses like it was a high mount, but it was a high mount that Ismagulov had by design. That was where he was going to look to posture and like rain down on him. So, yeah, Tsarukyan just did not get tired, did not falter, just strong as fuck. So fucking impressed with Tsarukyan in this one. Like, what a fight.
I don't think Ismagulov expected Tsarukyan to try and match him in the wrestling. I think he maybe thought this was going to be like the Guram fight, and they were kind of both going to decide that the wrestling is going to negate each other, and it was going to come down to the striking. And one thing about Tsarukyan, man, against Gamrot, against Makhachev, against all of these guys that are elite level wrestlers, he is so happy to put that skill on and test out and see who has the wrestling advantage. And like you say, man,
well, he is hella strong. Like I didn't realize how strong, but Ismagulov is a fucking monster, and Tsarukyan put him in his pocket. Like Tsarukyan is a lot stronger than I gave him credit for. Both guys technical as hell. Neither one panicked. Everything was, very clinical, very surgical in the way they were doing their grappling. Ismagulov was constantly defending well, looking to kind of move position well. Tsarukyan constantly controlling and advancing well.
It kind of got
a very technical fight, but hella strong. These boys are absolute monsters. I don't know if people appreciate like what we just saw last weekend, like how strong these guys are and how good they are.
It's funny as well. I kind of feel like it just got away from Ismagulov. It just ran out of time. He was defending really well in the first round, but then lost it. Second round, you could tell that, again, he's defending well to a point, but you can see that in his mind, he knows he's losing the rounds. And then all of a sudden, once you're caught in that trap against somebody like Tsarukyan, where the guy's thinking, I need to land big shots because I need to win this round now. Oh, now he's dived under me because obviously now I'm trying to ground myself and commit my weight and land harder. And then third round, it's the same. It's like maybe that might be the first time in Ismagulov's career that he's ever been in the situation of coming out thinking, fuck, I'm too down. I just need to knock this guy out. And he's a better wrestler than me. And from then it was over. As soon as Tsarukyan was 2 rounds up, I just knew he's going to wait. Ismagulov's going to try and land a big hook. He's going to go underneath him. Really impressive. And I thought he negated the jab very well by using his kicks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Tsarukyan he was seeing everything. He just had a really close to perfect performance.
You know what? There's like 4 of these guys that are all moving up in lightweight. And I think all of them now have had that situation. Like they've all had these close fights and a lot of them have already fought each other. And, it's like Guram beat Gamrot, but then he loses to Ismagulov. Tsarukyan loses to Gamrot, but then he beats Ismagulov. We're talking about like 4 guys that could be just constantly trading the belt between each other in like 3 years' time.
Yeah, and to be honest, some of these boys pose a very big threat to Makhachev, and honestly, just all of the old guards sitting in there in the top five. So a lot of them match up well in different ways.
I'm very
Plus, to be honest, you win a couple of fights, and who the fuck knows? You might be
front
fighting
in that
either
mix.
a Michael Chandler or a Conor McGregor because apparently that's going to be a fucking title. Well, no one's saying officially that's a title eliminator, but we all have our concerns about it, and they're not unfounded. So this is
If
a very good
fucking
time to be a young up and comer at 155.
yeah, yeah. Any news around Conor McGregor and lightweight just scares me at this point. I don't want to discuss that. In terms of the Makachev thing, it's hard to say because it's possible that he is just a level above even all of these guys. But
Well,
we're going to find
Sarukian's
out.
coming on leaps and bounds. He looks to still be kind of filling out and getting a bit stronger. It'd be interesting. Kutataladze, Ismagulov. Well, up until this point, I thought Ismagulov was going to be a real fucking threat for Makhachev. So we'll see. And then Gamrot. I feel like Makhachev is better in the stand up than he gets credited for even to this day. A lot of those guys are going to give him a lot of fucking problems in the stand up game. And where Sarukian probably more or less even will be different kind of styles and approaches with the stand up. I feel like he's getting to the point where he might be able to threaten Makhachev a little bit with the grappling. So
Well,
yeah, fucking 155 is going to be fun as hell. Let's assume that it's going to be those five faces populating the majority of the top 10, or half the top 10, because that's even less than half, assuming one's champion. I'm not very good at doing things off the cuff. Apparently, I can't have thoughts and then say them without questioning myself. But you know what I mean, Matt. I feel like we've got a lot of good young faces in at 155,
also, dude,
and
Fiziev.
more coming up. Yeah,
Fiziev.
Rafael Fiziev.
Striker in the mix. We haven't seen him. We don't know what his takedown defense is going to be like against some of these guys, but he's the danger man on the feet. You've got Jalen Turner. I don't know if he's going to have the grappling of any of these guys, but when you've got
I
that
would.
submission
I
threat,
hope we see that Drew Dober fight. I really hope he answers the call on that one.
the only thing is, though, I think Jalen Turner's trying to look up the rankings, not down. You know, he's ranked at the moment. I think he would feel that he wants to try and crack into that top 10. Although it would be a fun fight.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
but it's like you know what I mean? He's not going to get a fight. I mean, Benil Dariush maybe takes that fight. Does
he'd be
Fiziev?
crazy too.
Not unless he has to. Does Gamrot? Probably not unless he has to. RDA's on a reprieve. He doesn't have to. So he's really got to look down. Realistically, he can sit and wait, or he can look down. Young fighter, could do with the rounds. Probably not championship ready. Yeah, you want to be moving on up. It's one of those things though. You probably have to move on up by putting some wins together.
Well, here's the other factor as well. I thought the Poirier fight for Dariush would be a good matchup, but I don't think Poirier takes this, and I'll tell you why. With Makhachev fighting in February, assuming he beats Volkanovski, and let's just also assume that he's not going to take too much damage and be fresh to fight reasonably soon afterwards. And if you factor in that Khabib has always had this kind of like strong respect for Poirier, I could see Poirier wanting to sit out and trusting that Makhachev might call him out after beating Volkanovski.
Maybe
That's
could
what I
do.
could see because I think they'd
I
look
mean,
at that as a
you
big
got to
name.
believe everyone in his camp and his management and everyone would be saying the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like no one's going to be pushing him to take fights. Everyone's going to be pushing him to do what's right for that battle. I think you got that. I think you got that on the money, man.
Well, also, it's a big name. It's a winnable fight. You know, you look at, particularly if they think that the Michael Chandlers probably aren't getting back there. Conor McGregor, listen, they'll probably stick him in an eliminator. I don't think that's going to happen. Poirier's that money
But
fight.
if they do the Chandler McGregor fight, I mean, like it's probably the last chance for both of them to do a big money title fight, and I think it's going to be the last sort of big pseudo eliminator fight that they're going to get before the time kind of runs out there. So, and unless McGregor pulls off some sort of fucking miracle kind of change of lifestyle or something, I assume Chandler's just going to take him down for 5 rounds and beat fuck out of him or finish him. So yeah, I feel like Michael Chandler will probably get a title shot off the back of that one, and then because I don't think he matches up well with Makhachev, loses that. Shit, you know what though? Like I completely slept on Volkanovski. I don't know why, because in my head I'm like, well, if he wins, he retires or goes back down or something. But yeah, I'm still kind of thinking Volkanovski might be the key to the Makhachev puzzle. So fuck
I'll
it
tell you
though.
what the
55 is
advantage.
fun as fuck. I love having these problems.
I'll tell you what Volkanovski. I mean, we are going way off topic here, but this is a fun one. Volkanovski.
Hey, why not? We're not doing a pick show this week. Let's get some fucking minutes in.
I'll tell you what the biggest advantage I think Volkanovski is going to have going into that fight. I don't think he gives a fuck. Like, I think he cares about his legacy, and I think he'd love to add that second belt. But he also strikes me as a guy that has total confidence in himself. I don't think he cares if he loses. I think he knows, he's already pound for pound number one fighter in the world. He's not losing his featherweight belt. Very few people are going to expect him to do it. I think that mentality is really going to help him, man. And I think his body shape, I think being a little bit shorter, stockier than Makhachev, I think he's going to be faster. I think that's going to be a huge factor, is his speed.
He's going to be the faster, more technical guy. And there's a very real chance that he's going to adapt quite well to going back to 55. He's a very fucking strong guy. If you have that combination of speed, size, and technique, and you filled out well, and he hasn't necessarily got the frame where you're like, yeah, you can just drop muscle on that all fucking day. But he's done it before. He seems to have done it comfortably. Getting older, bodies change, nothing's a given. I think Volkanovski's going to be fucking deadly at 55. How deadly do you have to be to beat Makhachev, though? That's
the only thing
that's not really a concern in my head. I'm just trying to be a good pundit here.
The immediate worry I have, though, is Makhachev isn't necessarily going to need to dive in for sort of double legs in the center. The danger is what happens when you pressured against the cage. What happens when Makhachev's trying to use his size and extra weight to bully you, when he starts using his trips. If he gets on top of Volkanovski, is Volkanovski going to be able to hold him off in that position? These are the questions I would have, because I could easily see Makhachev taking him down, and once he's in that top position, just locking in an arm triangle and just out muscling him. But I'm fucking excited for that fight. Lightweight's fun. Our co-main event was fun. Another division that's fun, becoming fun, is flyweight. Amir Albazi is starting to look like he's a real guy. I mean, he's always looked like he's a real guy, but
yeah, no, he's
another win.
He's on a tear.
He's on a tear. Listen, it's a short notice replacement. He did what you meant to do to short notice replacements, which is beat them and finish them, win convincingly. His winning streak goes on. I like this guy. I think he's going to be a problem. He was originally meant to fight Brandon Royval. So that's the level.
No, it was no. I can't remember who. Original booking pulled out. Then Alex Perez. Then Perez pulled out. Then Royval. Then Royval pulled out. Then Costa.
Okay.
So from start of camp to making the walk, 3 opponent changes. He had a game plan for 4 different guys here, and him and the Bashrat brothers. I'm not claiming them as England's own, but like given that they have lived and trained and resided in Britain, I've got a fucking homer for them. So yeah, Albazi.
Nasty. That
a few people let me down on this main card. Albazi came good though. And a very intense fight. I thought Costa did a fantastic job of bringing it out of
He
him.
looks really good, man.
Albatsi won this one. Yeah, he won this fight from the beginning to the finish. But Costa, I tip my fucking hat, and I cannot wait to see you fight again with a full camp under your belt.
Yeah, FYI, we did not do well on these picks, man. Either of us. This was not a strong showing. We only just got the main event, and both of us think Strickland won. We were wrong on Sarukian, right on Albazi, wrong on Mr. Alex Caceres, who, I mean, we kind of touched on it. I mean, both of these guys were coming in and in pretty good runs of form. I mean, obviously, Caceres lost his last fight, but we thought Julian Erosa was going to get it done, and Caceres lands a beautiful head kick, man.
If you were going to say someone lands like a very funky head kick to win this fight, your pick would have been Erosa though. But it was the way that he sets up that kick, and I don't know. I believe like as he throws that combination, he had probably committed to throwing a body kick there, but he makes the read on Erosa, adjusts mid kick, just sort of tilts back a little, brings it up to the head, and man, if you don't believe that was a flush kick, just watch Erosa, try to make his way to the stool after the fight.
It's insane. And the
That
crazy
was
thing is,
beautiful.
he doesn't even load it up. I mean, it's not quite as crisp and clean technique as what Leon Edwards did to Usman, but it's the same.
Yeah, but
Leon
Edwards set up a headshot. Leon Edwards set up a shot on a guy that kept dipping his head out to the right, to Leon's left, and he kept trying to evade every like 1-2, like the 1-2 hook and like the feints. He kept dipping out that way, so that kick was there across 5 rounds, and eventually Leon was able to set it upright and pull the trigger. This was like an in the moment adjustment, mid fucking kick, not a question mark kick, literally on one leg, balancing back, making the read. Fuck, I'm gonna tilt back a little and bring this one up. Like, I'm gonna sacrifice power for placement and just flush. Just a thing of beauty. That was my favorite knockout of the night, and obviously that's hard to say because I picked against him. But I'm a Caceres fan. I'm a Juicy J fan. It was a hard pick to make at the time. It was a fun fight to watch. It's tricky to break down because I want to give love and respect to both men, but unfortunately, Juicy J didn't get put much on show. Alex just fucking, that was just a beautiful magic moment. That was a really fun fucking head kick.
Yeah. I mean, listen, one of these guys had to lose, but like we said beforehand, there's so many similarities between them. I mean, both of them have kind of found this swan song in their career a bit later on and have looked fucking excellent. I mean, Erosa loses this one, Caceres moves on, but I think Erosa is going to be back, and I think he's still a dangerous guy at featherweight.
Absolutely, he's always a threat. He's got his knockouts, he's got his submissions, he's got so much veteran savvy, and I don't even want to say he's chinny. It's just a funky knockout, man. Like he didn't see that head kick coming.
Catches him just right. It's perfect. Let's talk about Drew Dober. We got this one wrong again because
yes, please.
I thought that what we saw for the first 7-8 minutes of the fight was pretty much going to be the entire fight, which is that Bobby's too sharp, he's too good at rolling, he's too educated, he controls space very well. Even when he's pressured, he finds the counters, he moves off, he doesn't stay in one place long enough for guys to start really cracking the body, and he can take a punch for the odd times that he's going to be caught. And Drew Dober was getting beaten badly in this fight, but a little bit like his last fight against Garcia, it's a case of he knows that he can end the fight at any moment. He can be losing the whole fight and he can just find his moment to win it. And it's a third fight in a row for him where he's losing the fight and then finds that perfect shot that changes the tide.
Yeah, I mean, who's the better fighter?
Yeah.
Like for me, this is how do you judge who is the better fighter? Because Bobby Green, for half this, half of a 3-round fight, just no two ways about it. He is the better fighter. He didn't win the fight. Now, in my head, I'm like, you know what, these fucking things happen. You replay that fight over 1,000 times. Bobby Green probably wins the vast majority. Doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, as much as you want to say that the undefeated fighters are the best fighters, the fighters that never lose are the best fighters, blah, 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 blah. It's all circumstance, it's all context, it's a results driven business. It's what happened on the night. Bobby
Also,
Green is a better fighter than Drew Dober. Doesn't matter.
no, it's about
Or
using your skill
I'm
set.
full of shit and huh?
I think it's about using your skill sets. Bobby Green does not have the ability, the durability to fight like Drew Dober. And Drew Dober doesn't have the ability and speed and reach and reaction time to fight the way that Bobby Green does. But as a result, what Drew Dober can do is he can take those shots and he can make the reads and he can see what a guy's looking to do. And then he can figure out where's the place to land and where can I land hard and make it count. You know, in his previous fight against, I'm pretty sure it was Garcia. I've been saying Garcia. I hope that's not incorrect. In his previous fight, it was figuring out the body's open. This guy's head movement, Rafael Alves, not Rafa Garcia, Rafael Alves. You made the read that the body's there and the head isn't because the guy's head movement is just out of this fucking world. And he ends the fight with a body shot. Here, it just took him just enough time to figure out what Bobby's doing. And when he hands it down and your chin's up, you know, if a guy makes the right read and catches you right, you're there, you're gone. That's it. You're being caught clean. And that's the negative of Bobby Green's style.
Well, that's what it was for me. It was just shades of sort of Weidman Silver. You know, Bobby Green, he's not going to be as effective if he keeps his hands up. And, you know, he can still be good. He can still win fights, but it's going to be a different fighter. And he was beating the shit out of Drew Dober. It's just he got caught. This is what it is. But, you know, sorry, Drew. I just feel like Bobby's the better fighter. And it was just one of those moments. It's just full on. You know, no one says Weidman is definitively a better fighter than Anderson Silva. I don't think Dober is definitively a better fighter than Bobby Green, but give Dober his credit. Didn't give up on himself, backed himself to the end there. Bobby Green just gets caught in that moment where it's like, well, to be honest, if you bring your hands up with your face, your back to the cage against a guy like Dober, he's probably just going to shoot on you anyway. So it's kind of like pick your poison. You got to take some risks here, take some chances. And yeah, you just got caught. It was a great shot.
He's such a
Green was down right away.
He's such a nice guy, Drew Dober. He really is. You can tell when you hear him talk. His whole I love his viewpoint on fighting. And for a guy that makes a lot of money modeling outside the UFC as well, he is a dangerous fucking guy. I mean, this is a guy that is in there to have fun fights, to have exciting fights, says no to fights that he thinks are going to be boring. You know, you're not fighting the average guy, man. He will take those shots and he won't give a fuck and he will take risks to win. He will risk losing the fight to win it. That's it. He's a horrible fight for anybody that wants to try and stand and trade with him.
And to be honest, let's ignore when he kind of first came into the UFC. He was just sort of going over the last maybe like 10 fights or so. The only losses are Benil Dariush, Islam Makhachev, and Brad Riddell, which, you know, you probably would back him to beat Brad Riddell if you got a second shot at it, maybe. But, you know, like that's the only one where you're like, maybe that wasn't a great loss. Whereas losing to the champ and losing to Benny D, you know, fuck.
Well, also, he was fighting Brad Riddell when Brad Riddell was, holy shit, this could be the guy, Brad Riddell. And that was
still earthquake.
Fight. I mean, that fight.
It was a fun fight.
I mean, he knocked him down. He had him hurt in the first round. So, and he does seem like he's learning. He seems like he's somebody that kind of, you know, he looks at his losses and he looks at his performances and he's aware of what didn't work and what he needed to improve on. And as he said himself, man, he's about to have a kid. And he says, you know, this is my punching power at the moment is before I even get dad strength. Next year, I'm coming in with dad strength. You motherfuckers are doomed.
Yeah, his strength and conditioning coach needs to be fired. But he is on the verge of breaking the lightweight knockout records. He has put in a very solid body of work against credentialed names, but Bobby Green, by far and away, is his biggest win, right up there with sort of Nasrat Haqparast. I really would love to see that Jalen Turner fight. I don't think that's a winnable fight for him, but I'll pick against him plenty. So ignore what I fucking say.
I'd have to favor Turner there. I think Turner might be the thing about, like, I mean, we're talking a lot about lightweight this episode, but the factor for me with Jalen Turner that comes into it is he's not as good of a wrestler as obviously the kind of the big five names that we've been discussing. But when you're that tall and you've got that kind of range and you've got his kind of power and you're dangerous with submissions from top control and off your back, that's
very quick for a tall man in this weight class.
Yeah, he could be, just in terms of pure athleticism, I think he presents a real fucking issue. And man, listen, I'm a fucking, you know, Dustin Poirier super fan at this point. I will never tell you that Dustin does not have a chance if he is in a 25-minute fight. That's just, even if it's a 1% chance, the man has always got a chance. So you never know. Let's talk about.
I like that.
Let's talk about he whose name cannot be pronounced. Michael Oleksiejczuk.
Oleksiejczuk.
Okay, that was the closest I think I've ever come, but we're going to stick with Mikhail at this point. Man, he went through Cody. Man, I thought this was going to be a way. I thought he was going to win, but I thought this was going to be a more competitive fight than this, man. He's the fucking guy.
Well, the fence grab helps.
True.
But all right. After the fence grab, all it means is he's got his back taken with from quite a low position, both up against the fence, sat down, not flat out. From that point on, the way he stays calm, fights the hands, reverses the position, and dominates. Very impressive. I mean, Jesus Christ, this guy looked pretty fucking tidy at 205. Even though, you know, you were like, this is not your weight class, you should drop down. But he was still bouncing people around at 205. The power in his hands is ridiculous. And the fact that he can survive takedown attempts like that, you know, he basically getting taken down. Like, let's ignore the fence grab for a second and the fact that he got into a slightly more favorable position. From then on, the way he worked, very, very fucking impressive. No one loves a fence grab. It's one of those instinctive things more than anything. I'm not going to call him a cheat or shit on him or anything. It's just, you know, there was that moment.
That's on the refs. The refs need to catch those.
Well, here's the thing, you know, I think it was Mark Smith calling this one. Whoever the ref was, says it at the time. I let go of that fence. But the damage is already done. It's not egregious enough to probably have a point taken. You can't reset the position from there. You can't go like, right, great, let's do this, but I own the open mat now because of what you did. You can't do anything like that. So it's like it basically every time someone puts their fingers through the links or toes through the links of the fence, are we going to pause the action? Are we going to take a moment to call a foul and reset the position? I think the ref did as much as they can do. And I don't want to say Oleksiejczuk did it tactically, but, you know, like essentially everyone feels like, you know, you get one. It's fine. This isn't the best example of it, but it's just the first one that kind of springs to mind. I remember Nate Diaz talking about, he didn't even land the low blow, but he when he winded Conor McGregor in their first fight, after the first time he rocked him, but before the second time, it was really kind of a huge changing moment in the fight for him. He said, I was feeling a little tired. I wanted to take a break, so I deliberately threw a knee to his like groin area to get a low blow to try and get a couple of minutes rest. And I missed his ball bag, ended up hitting him in the midriff and completely changing the fight. And it's just like these little moments where like fighters are like, yeah, I'm going to foul him now because I just need to. And they get away with it. You know, there's kind of that sort of side to every sport. You know, there's always going to be the dark arts in any kind of competitive action. It's just the way we're built. We're always gonna like look at ways to kind of bend the rules, break the rules. There's always gonna be somebody, right? There's that classic, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Um,
I hate that saying.
it took the shine off a little for me, but fuck it. Everything else apart from that, so fucking impressive. How far can Alexei go?
Pretty far, particularly at middleweight, I think. I want to see him fight some ranked people.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's they've been keeping him on the shelf for long enough. Cody
Right.
Brundage, you kidding me? This man was doing very well at light heavyweight, came down, has looked great, and you're giving Cody Brundage the shot. We need to think bigger here, I think.
No, very
I
true.
feel.
I'd agree with that. We're going to go through the prelims a little bit more quickly because we spent a lot of time talking about the main card, but there are some very noteworthy performances and fights that need to be discussed. Corey McKenna gets it done against Cheyenne Blismus, I should say now.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great performance. I'll actually be honest, I kind of thought, I was surprised it was so clearly unanimous. I thought Cheyenne Bays made a couple of those rounds quite close. I thought she definitely was the better striker.
Everyone seemed to take the approach that this was like we were scoring this 5 years ago or something. Everyone was like, "Yep, takedowns. That's the round."
Yeah, so she squeezes past, but there's a lot of work Corey needs to do. I mean, her game has to be striking is just to set up the takedowns because she's just too fucking small, man. And against
I feel like her game plan is to hang around long enough for the UFC or another big organization to put in an atom weight group. Because right now, what have you got for atom weight? You've got Invicta, you've got some regional,
that's
so
it.
some decent regional names, but even though I don't know how many of them consistently have belts, I think they just put together fights from time to time.
I'll give Poppins this. Vlismus was always going to be a tricky fight because she throws nice kicks and she throws a lot of kicks. And so it makes it a lot harder to try and kind of bob and weave and work your way in. So, but the thing is that, I mean, it's, Vlismus isn't that tall for straw weight. And she's nowhere near the level of striker that you're going to have to get through. And certainly not the level of kicker that you've got to get through in that division. Unless you're really just committing to that wrestling game and that jiu-jitsu game, it's going to be tough. But McKenna squeaks past. But let's talk about the two Matthews. Let's talk about Matthews versus Semmelsberger. I feel really bad for Jake Matthews. I thought in terms of technical striking and the speed and the combinations, I thought he showed a lot more than Semmelsberger in all three rounds. The problem is that in all three rounds, he got hit by a fucking monster right hand that almost knocked him out.
Well, here's the problem. I don't think anybody wanted to be the guy that Semmelsberger had to fight after that Morono fight. Particularly with Semmelsberger having to watch Morono get starched by Ponzi in the third round last week. So Semmelsberger came out. I'm fucking pretty high on this kid right now. The way he came out and just started changing levels, mixing it up. Always been a big, powerful guy. It's impossible to be that big, that powerful, and be super effective and evasive in the stand up across 3 rounds. All right, Morono highlighted that for him, and all of a sudden he's a mixed martial artist. I could not be more fucking happy for him. And what's crazy is that this is the most knockdowns he's ever got in a fight in the UFC, and this is the most I've ever seen him wrestle. So, I think it's the most knockdowns and most takedowns he's had in a UFC fight. It came in the same fight. Jake Matthews is not a world beater, but he's a very, very good fighter. If Semi can do this to Matthews, which I've seen other fighters do to Matthews as well, and go on and do some shit, I think he's maybe got an opportunity to hit that top 10. And with his power, he's always got a chance if he had the right string of results. But ultimately, he's not the fastest guy. He does get tired because he's big and he's powerful, and that's his style. But the way he's mixing it up now, I fucking love this shit. I love it when Kutalaba does it. I loved it when Mike Perry started doing it. I love it when power punchers realize that if you start level changing, it's a lot easier to find that chin.
This is true. I also feel I think this actually applies to Matthews and Semmelsberger, and I think you can truck Morono into this category as well, and a couple of other guys at welterweight. There's a few of these unranked guys where you can see that there's a lot of potential, and you can also see that they're not quite there yet. And I feel like Semmelsberger is one of those guys where he's in that mix of, he's obviously good, but you can see that there's potential there to maybe take him further. And the Morono fight, you look at it and go, okay, it's not quite there yet. Like there's still some things missing. And same with Jake Matthews, where, you know, up until the Fiallo fight, his previous fight, you were thinking the same thing. Then you see him knock out Fiallo and you're like, holy shit, it looks like he's connecting it together. And then obviously he takes a bit of a stumble here, but I don't know where Semmelsberger fits into all of this yet. Like, is he a top 15 guy? Is he a top 10 guy? Can he break past that sort of like decent at the unranked level, but kind of loses to those other guys, you know, 50% of the time who are trying to get into the rankings? A win like this goes a long way. How old is he?
Not super young, but given that his game relies on power,
He's only 30.
And he's, you know, working to his strengths now. You know, he has every shot at making a run. He's not someone I'm tipping on. He's not like my I'm not tipping him as my star to keep an eye on for 2023 or anything. I'm just saying this kid's really starting to put it together, and you know, he has two of the fastest knockouts in divisional history. He knows how to make a read. He knows how to counter. He knows how to use his hands. That Morono loss, Morono was fucking lights out, and we know how good Morono is. Yeah. So,
well, also, I mean, he's rarely in a dull fight either, is he, Matthew Semmelsberger? It's always usually a pretty fun scrap. Let's talk about Said Nurmagomedov. He was having a rough old day until he turned this one around.
Yeah, this was a comeback. He was getting his ass kicked. I mean, that's the thing though. Kakhramonov just he got a little sloppy there on that final takedown, just left his neck out there. And he tried to adjust well once Nurmagomedov started locking it up. But you know, Said Nurmagomedov's no fucking bum. You only have to make one mistake sometimes, and Kakhramonov just couldn't recover from there. Ended up getting tapped.
Pretty much.
Beautiful sequence though.
Yeah, I think Kakhramonov, I think he felt that he had to do a lot of work to keep Nurmagomedov on the back first, and that was the key to winning the fight. And obviously, he starts getting a little tired. That's when he gets sloppy. You know, fair play to Said to make the read and capitalize at that moment with the submission.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, that game plan worked because it wasn't like Kakhramonov just emptied his gas tank and was the more tired fighter. Nurmagomedov was way more laggy, way more exhausted. You know, than Kakhramonov, but didn't fucking matter. Once he got on that neck, he just did what he had to do. Kept rolling through with it, kept adjusting, logs it up. Beautiful.
Bloodbath of the night was Rafa Garcia versus Mahashete. Rafa Garcia clearly wins the fight, but gets a brutal cut on the side of his head that was literally squirting blood.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had to make some adjustments as well, because it wasn't just the cut on the side of the head. He kind of got his ass kicked in that first round and then just turned it on.
No, but fair play to Rafa, put the work in, and loves his cornering from Cub. Thought he was saying exactly the right things to him, kept his fighter in the game. I loved that attitude of, I think it was after the second round, where he was really sort of, you know, saying, you know, I want you to fight like you're 2-0 down, have that kind of energy, and he did.
Yeah, no, Rafa put it on him. It's just such a fun fight. I feel like every fight we've talked about is a fun fight. I don't understand where the lack of entertainment value was on this one.
No, listen, it was a really good card. It's just that it kind of squibbed a bit at the end in terms of excitement. I thought there were some really good performances. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about the section, which was a bit more one-sided. We had our kind of wrestle fuckings. Brian Bassel steps in short notice against Rinat Fakhretdinov. Just what, he wasn't ready for this fight, man. He needed a full training camp to even have a shot, and he didn't have that. He was just defending the whole time.
I mean, it depends how he reacts. This could be the best thing for him. But yeah, Fakhretdinov, the hype is real. Get on the fucking train, boys. This is two dominant performances in a row now. Let's. I mean, shit. You know, this was a good fight. I thought on matchmakers, but yeah,
I say
Puba's
battle
got to
took the
bounce
short
back strong from
notice.
this one. Yeah,
I don't think that
definitely.
helped.
It's always a factor.
At least he got paid for Christmas, though. That's good.
Yeah. It's nice to bounce back with some money in your pocket. So
True. David Dvorak, Manel Karp. I really liked Dvorak's game plan until it didn't work. I thought he had completely the right idea.
I thought from the get-go, I was like, his movement looked smooth, but it looked quite labored, like he's putting a lot of energy into it. And then everything was so big and just constantly moving.
There was a lot of movement.
To be honest, that wasn't even really the factor. It was more just kind of getting his arm torn out of his socket at the end of the first round. But
yeah,
I think Dvorak came out a little too cautious, a little too respectful, a little too nervy in this fight.
He was winning that first round, though, man. It was working until his fucking arm got dislocated.
He's lucky he didn't get finished, though, in that round.
He is lucky he didn't get finished. But
my concern was before the shoulder injury was that he was kind of pissing away all of his cardio there.
It didn't look like he got. I mean, he did get tired at the end, but I think the arm being fucked didn't help. I think the idea of kind of forcing Manel Karp, who he knows is a showman, who he knows wants to put that highlight counter into play, to maybe come forward and maybe overly expend his energy, burn out some of that explosiveness, trying to look for the highlight and stay disciplined. And I thought he was picking his moments really well. He was making it a dull fight, which he knows is going to frustrate Manel Karp. And I thought he was getting the better of the exchanges when he did move in and pick his moments and make something happen. The submission at the end is I mean, that is nice work from Karp. He had to really work for that, but makes it count, almost taps in, basically wins the fight at that point. And from the rest of it, it was just a complete offense versus defense. And obviously, Manel Karp was never going to lose that.
Let the Kimura sweep into a worse Kimura. Always love that. Sounds so simple, so hard to do. Now, look, come on. Doing well in the first round against Karp isn't anything to really hang your hat on. And then
this is true.
Both these guys are going to be on the up and up, though.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Both these guys are going to be in the top 5 inevitably.
And respect to his
like David Dvorak. Yeah, man. The fact he didn't get finished. A lot of positives to say about David Dvorak. I just feel he probably would have wanted to have done better in this fight. I feel like he's going to come out of this fight thinking that he knows nothing about his skill set versus Manel's skill set. Just that he didn't have the best night, and we move forward. So fuck it. I hope he takes that approach anyway. I'm pretty sure he will.
And to open up the card, Sergey Morozov gets the win over Journey Newson. I think you went Newson on that one. Did I go Morozov, or did we both line up the same?
I don't think I went Newson, but I'd have to double check. I didn't write this one down. So, because we're not doing a pick show this week, I haven't bothered to go back through the old pick show and see which ones I actually picked for this week.
Well,
I just sat down and watched the fights and didn't worry about it.
The only one that really stands out that you and I were different on is Mahashate and Rafa Garcia. And I lost that one. I think aside from that, we're pretty much the same. I had Jake Matthews. Did you have Semmelsberger or Matthews?
Pretty sure I went semi, but I didn't write it down. So that'll be the first one I didn't write down. I wrote down everything until that point. So I can tell you that I was, I think, 4-3 on the first 7 fights.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure. Did you go Kakram? No, we both went Saeed. Yeah, I think you caught 2 back up off me this week, which means it goes from being somewhere between a 5 and 7 point lead for me to being somewhere between a 3 and 5 point lead for me.
I thought it was a 3 or 5 point lead.
No,
But
no,
either
no.
way, like
I'm,
we've lost track of the pixel. We need to go back through the old episodes
oh man, I'm
and
terrible at
track
doing that.
these. We both have to go do that.
I know. It's just such a
And then we have
pain.
to start going back to religiously putting picks in the picks group.
Yeah, probably should post what the score is at regular intervals as well. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult time recently.
2023, we need to kind of crack into a lot of these things that we want to do. I haven't been great either, mate, to be fair. But who knows? Someone's still listening to us, and we've had like a month of like inaudibly poor audio episodes for a variety of different reasons. So if anyone's still with us, then fuck, they're loyal people.
Yeah, shit. I gotta be honest. Like, not a lot of people get this deep into the episodes. So,
because you can see the
fair play.
analytics and all that kind of
If
stuff.
you are here, drop a comment, bro. Like, we will for sure give you a shout out. Let you make some picks.
What's the average watch time of our episodes?
Yeah, we do. I'm not saying that on the podcast.
Is it less than?
I know. I know I bring that average down though, because I just go in and I kind of quickly open up the episodes and like them on my account and on the channel account as well when we do them, just to get the ball rolling. So that drags the average down a little bit. I know what you're thinking. 2 views, that shouldn't drag your average down. Yeah, I know, but if we have 30 views on the week, it does. So
is our average watch time less than 5 minutes?
I am not divulging this information.
Can you text it to me? Can you text it to me?
I will tell you as soon as we stop recording, yeah. But
we've obviously created the impression that it's bad.
No, really. Hey, if you're listening right now and you're like, you know what? I get this deep into like a lot of your episodes, boys. Hey, drop us a comment.
That'd be awesome.
Fuck, I mean, I wouldn't even mind having listeners on the show. Have a little chat about things. There's no way you're not interested in MMA if you're listening this deep into our little podcast. So
this is very true.
By all means, drop us a comment. We'll have a conversation. We'll chat some shit, make some picks, have some fun.
This is good points to end the year on. It's not the end of the year for us because we're going to do one more show next week before the year's out. But that is the end of our discussion on this card. The last thing I'll say, because we did do a pick for this fight and it didn't end up happening. Deron Winn got in a serious car accident or he had a fall down the stairs. So his fight with Julian Marquez got cancelled. I'm going to be honest, that fall down the stairs might be the best win he's going to have all year. It saved him from a car crash.
Yeah, we weren't super keen on this fight. We thought it might be a bit of a bloodbath. Anyway, there is one more fight to talk about, though. Did you not see the Mike Jackson Jake Shields fight?
No.
UFC PI.
No.
So Jackson and Shields have been throwing shade at each other on social media.
Mike Jackson, the guy who somehow has a win in the UFC.
Yeah, the guy that is technically a UFC fighter, although barely. That guy bumped into Jake Shields at the PI. And Jake Shields had been waiting for this moment because Mike Jackson had really wound them up. And Jake Shields is, you can't be Nick Diaz's training partner for that long in your life without being a real fighter's fighter. Just being a real, like, you say some shit, we're going to fucking have it out kind of guy. Jake Shields isn't going to just be punching people on sight. He's not a dickhead, but he did not do himself proud. And he did get into a fucking fight at the PI with Mike Jackson, which I've seen it. Everyone around's like, oh, come on, Jake, what are you doing? Don't do it to him. Jake, stop. And when Jake starts raining down punches, that's when they break up the fight. It takes a little bit of time. It's a very awkward, weird kind of situation that, to be honest, just rings true for me about every fight I've really seen in real life. But yeah, Mike Jackson gets his ass kicked by a guy that's a lot stronger, a lot bigger, and, well, frankly, just a much better fighter. But both guys saying so much stupid shit online afterwards. Mike Jackson keeps calling Shields a racist and a Nazi. Jake Shields keeps calling Mike Jackson a racist and an idiot. And I could give a fuck who's right here because they're both wrong. Just you shouldn't be fighting in public like that. You shouldn't be having like real fights. Just keep it all just competitive, just organized with a ref, with a doctor, with a fucking purse. Make it worth your while. But yeah, if you haven't seen it,
How
maybe
old
check
is
out the
Jake
clip. It's not
Shields?
brutal or anything. It's just Jake Shields, just basically big brother and fucking. Do you say how old is he?
Yeah.
40 ish, I reckon.
It's like, dude, your career's not. You know what I
But
mean?
he's
You're
retired.
not
He's not a fighter anymore. He's
exactly drop this bullshit, man. Like, what? Mike
It wasn't
Jackson's
like
got
a
his.
career advancement kind of thing. It's not like Masvidal, Leon Edwards. It's this guy said some shit, and I'm gonna fucking deal with it, kind of thing. That's how Jake Shields operates.
Yeah, I just think.
And as principled as that might be in some situations, this was the wrong way to go about it. Don't just go be putting hands on people just because they said some shit online.
Yeah, and also pick your setting, man. Don't do it when you're a guest at the PI.
Oh yeah, apparently he's banned from the PI now, though. Although that's
Yeah,
according to
yeah.
Mike
I'm
Jackson.
reading
So
about it.
fuck his nickname. He is not the truth. So
Yeah, and also Mike
we'll
Jackson, don't
see.
don't go around calling former fighters Nazis unless they literally are Nazis. I feel like that insult gets chucked around too much. There are too many non-Nazis that people call Nazis.
Yeah, definitely. Um, it also kind of desensitizes people to actual fucking Nazis.
Exactly. That's kind of
It's
the
like that's still a problem. Always has been a problem. Always will be a problem just because of the way the human mind works.
yeah,
Someone's
but
always going to be pushing out the other end.
this is the kind of shit that leads Kanye West to then. I'm not saying this is the reason, but like you say, the desensitization to calling people Nazis can lead to some guy
Yeah,
going on a podcast and saying, I like Nazis, which is fucking
it's
mental.
exactly who I was thinking of.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
just not
watching
what the
any
world
good,
needs.
before we end the podcast, you watching any good TV? Any good movies at the moment?
I've been watching a lot of old movies. Watched after we talked about, I went back and watched Crow. Watched The Italian Job yesterday.
The
Been watching
2003 one or the 1966 one?
no, no, not the fucking Mike Wahlberg one. Obviously, Noel Coward, Michael Caine.
Okay, just double checking.
The shit, the Self-Preservation Society, bro. Um, and Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet. Um, I've only recently checked that out. I've known about it since it came out, but I just never got around to watching it. So I started watching that this week. You've seen it before?
No, I don't think I have.
It's Rob McElhenney and Charlie Day from Always Sunny produce it. I think Day writes on it as well, maybe. But Rob McElhenney actually stars in it, along with Danny Pudi from Community. Danny Pudi's not the second lead; he's just part of the ensemble. It's just the only recognizable name I can pull out of my ass right now. Who the fuck else is in it? I mean, there are other names, not like huge names, but there are other people you're going to recognize. But very very fucking funny. It's about a video game company. So basically, just a very well written sitcom about a video game company, and it's kind of in the vein of Always Sunny. It's not as madcap. It's not as nasty and dirty. It's a bit more situational, a little bit more normal kind of circumstance, normal character driven, rather than just having an episode where Dee and Dennis become crackheads and stuff like that. Just nothing that ridiculous. Very entertaining though. What about you? What are you watching?
I just watched. What did I watch last night? I watched A Quiet Place Part Two, which I hadn't seen.
I like that
Was a
one.
bit. Didn't like it as much as Part One, if I'm honest. Didn't feel like the story had as much of a kind of beginning, middle, and end.
Well, it's going to be hard to top the first one,
True.
just for sheer impact as well. But it's like you can't redo the first one either. It's just a bit pointless. So you've already kind of got to you've got to take something that kind of not pivot, but took a reasonably fresh look at the horror genre, and then you've got to now do the same thing, but in a way that is also still marketable and within the genre, and then somehow also reinvent the wheel. It's never going to be as good as the first one just because of what it is. Very fucking satisfying for me though, because I really love that first one. Watching the second one as well. And they're doing a prequel as well, I believe.
I've seen that. Yeah. I mean, listen, I really like John Krasinski as a director, and I'll watch anything with Emily Blunt. That woman is fantastic in everything that she does. So I still liked it. I just thought, I don't know, it ended, and I was surprised that that was the end. Like I was expecting there to be more story and more things happening.
I always like it when they kind of end it. Those sort of let's say essentially it's kind of a post-apocalyptic one, you know? The alien invasion has very much bedded in. People are having to respond and react. You know, they're not dictating. The end of it is just okay. So the tables have turned now. So it's just that glimmer of hope. So just like the world felt like it had ended, and perhaps now we have a fighting chance. So, do I want to see the third movie where they set it up as a big action movie and just completely gut the heart out of the franchise? No, but I do like it when they kind of leave it on that open-ended, kind of ominous note.
Yeah, no, I get you. That's a good point. Aside from that, man, I finished The White Lotus, so I've got to find another show to delve into. Haven't seen Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Might start watching that.
Oh, I haven't seen that either. I heard it's good though.
I've heard it's very good, so I might delve
I've
into that.
seen, I think I've seen about half of the first episode. I've seen to finish it off now.
And then also rewatching Berserk, which is on Netflix at the moment.
Berserk, who's in that?
Berserk. It's a Japanese anime from the 90s, but a really fucking good one. I couldn't recommend it enough, man. It's 25 episodes, so you can kind of, it's not like taking on Naruto or something like that, where you've got to delve through like 600 episodes. You can actually kind of watch it in a concentrated period of time. And it's just like really dark Japanese look at kind of like a sort of medieval kind of mystical epic.
That's it. Yeah, I remember watching clips and like not trailers, but like just clips and things back in the day. I think I was probably put off by the short run. I was in my early 20s. I was always getting my teeth in a big animes, but I might check that out, man. All right, I've got to shoot.
Don't worry, man. Listen, Merry Christmas. Have a good little break. Enjoy the weekend. And
too,
guys, thanks for listening.
Guys.
Like, subscribe. We'll be back next week for our end of year awards and discussion. Merry Christmas wherever you guys are. Happy holidays if you're not celebrating Christmas. And as always, bye Dave, bye Laurie, bye Trifo.
Merry Christmas, Laurie. Merry Christmas, Dave. Peace.